Hey, welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit where the inner warrior shines in their light. Today I have a former coworker of mine, Rachelle Sloan. Rachelle is a mother, a wife, a teacher. She also does a side hustle with some woodworking and craftsmen, so she's kind of also an entrepreneur. But Rachelle is someone that I really admired when I was working with. She always gave really good customer service to the students that we were serving and put their needs first. And I really admired that. So, Rochelle, I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Um, I wanted to speak with you because I know that you have had an interesting journey of your own. Uh,
Mhm.
Life hasn't always been sunshine and roses, but yet you're still thriving and surviving. And those are the
Mhm.
kind of people I love to have in my world. So, may I ask where you grew up?
I grew up in Gilbert, Arizona.
Oh, you're a native.
I'm a native. Yes, we're rare.
Yes, one of those unicorns,
Yeah. So I grew up in Arizona, went to school out in Gilbert.
which is where
Pretty
I
much.
currently live. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. My mom still lives there. So
okay.
my mom and stepdad still live. My mom still lives in the house that I grew up in.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah. So
And it was you and your siblings?
yeah, so it was me and my brother. So my brother and I have a sister too, but we have different moms.
Okay.
And so she grew up with her mom in Tempe Mesa area. Yeah. And then our dad is in Tempe.
Okay.
So
Now, my wife has lived out here for about 20 some years in the
mhm.
Gilbert area, and she always tells about how it was just a little small farm
Oh,
community.
oh yes.
You know,
Yep.
it was like a decade ride just to get to Tempe and
Yes, yes, we were the Boondocks for a while. So Gilbert was considered the Boondocks. There was where I grew up on a Cooper and Warner,
okay.
and there was nothing there. It was cotton fields, cornfields, none of the Fry's, none of the Walgreens and Wendy's, and on the up, none of that was there. It was just either fields or dirt.
And
Um,
it's not too far from where I live, so I totally know where you're at. And
yeah,
I'm just trying to in my head vision cotton fields and cornfields because it's nothing but industry right now. Uh,
yes, yeah.
so what was it like growing up in rural Arizona? I mean, there's not a lot you can do as a child in rural areas. So what was that kind of
Yeah.
for you?
So before all of that was getting built, I would say the Mesa area is the area that we would drive to for like our groceries and stuff. Uh, Even more of the north part of Gilbert, like Old Town Gilbert and north of Old Town Gilbert. So that was
Yeah.
our commute to get groceries. We used to go to Smitty's.
Yeah.
Loved going to Smitty's with my mom because she would always get us a snack there because they had like a little dining area or restaurant some type in there, if I can remember correctly. So we'd always do that. But there wasn't a whole lot. We did the city sports. That's how we found friends and then just going to school. So we had neighbors. So the neighborhoods were established. They're just not the businesses.
Okay.
Um, so just being in school with my friends and stuff, and then figuring out what sports they did at the city level is how we all just kind of got around. And then we all lived really close to each other because we went to elementary school at the same elementary school. So we were all pretty close to each other. And then once we were able to get to driving age, that's when things were getting developed, like Fry's came and we started getting cars in high school. And so we were able to commute more, and Wendy's was our big hangout area. Wendy's and AMC Theater, that was the hangout area.
Nice.
So yeah.
So it sounds like you had a pretty fun childhood.
Yeah.
Not many people are born and raised here. Some leave. Did you go to college at ASU or did you go out of state for college? Where did you go to school?
So college wise, most of my friends, there was a big group of us girls, they went to NAU.
Mm,
I was one of the girls that had to go to community college. I didn't necessarily get a scholarship. I wasn't able to get financial aid or anything to be able to go to one of the universities. So I started off at Mesa Community College. I did pay for most of that experience on my own. So I was working full time, going to school full time, so I could pay for my college. Um, And then I kind of just, it took me a long time to get my bachelor's. I actually didn't start working on my bachelor's until I started working at University of Phoenix. So in between then, I was just getting some of my core classes done at a community level. And then I went into like massage school. So I did massage therapy for a while. And then after that, shortly is when I started working at University of Phoenix. And as an employee, you got to go to school for free. So that is how my husband and I both obtained our bachelor's degrees, is by working at University of Phoenix during the time that we were going to school.
When you were in high school, were you in athletics or cheerleading or anything? What was your kind of hobby for that period?
Um, for high school, I went to Mesquite High School and it was brand new. It was
Mhm.
a brand new building school. So it had just opened the year before and half of the campus was still getting built. So I was a freshman there and there was only up to junior levels.
Mm.
So it was just freshman, sophomore, junior. And they were still building the auditorium to the cafeterias because they have 3 cafeterias. So that was interesting. So during high school, I was in athletic training. I did volleyball, softball. So I was an athletic kid. And then when I didn't want to do athletics anymore, I got into athletic training. So I was a student athletic trainer for varsity and junior varsity football and basketball during high school, the rest of my high school years.
So what made you, because you're a teacher, you've been in higher education, you and I both worked at Grand
Mm-hmm.
Canyon University helping other people attain their doctoral degree. And you,
Mm-hmm.
so you've kind of always been, from when I've known you, in this educational realm. What got you
Yeah.
interested in being in education?
So I was looking for a full-time job and I went through a recruiting firm at that time. And those recruiting firms get in contact with companies who are doing hiring fairs. And that's how I got hired at University of Phoenix. The first day was the event and I went in and I actually sat at the table. I don't know if you remember, if you know, she came to GCU later on,
Hmm.
Darlene. So I ended up interviewing with 2 people that were doctoral managers for financial aid. So I ended up interviewing with them, and then that's how I got hired, and that's how I got into education.
So it wasn't a passion growing up? You're thinking, I'm going to go into education. Was it more the appeal of getting your own degree and it was a benefit?
So I actually didn't know about any of that. This was like my first time full job. So I was working full time, but it was more of like childcare kind of. So this was my first corporate job. So I had no idea what kind of benefits there were. I knew I just needed to get a full-time job. I needed benefits because I was going to be coming off of my mom's benefits, because
Okay.
I was at that age. So it wasn't something I was just the recruiting company was just like, oh, hey, there's these companies that are hiring. Here's their job fairs. Go ahead and go to them. And so I did. And that was the one that hired me. And that's just kind of how it happened. And then I knew I was going to eventually get my bachelor's, but I didn't know the incentive because you have to be working there for a certain amount of time in order for that incentive to become active.
Okay.
So during that grace period, I guess I should say, is when I was thinking about it. And then when it became available, then yes, I had enrolled and started getting my degree.
How long have you and Travis been married?
Oh gosh. 14, this is gonna be 14 years. This November will be 14 years.
So did you know him prior to working at UOP or did you meet him there?
No, so we had actually met through a former mutual friend. She had introduced us, and it was a week before my 21st birthday is when I met him. And um and then he actually came out for my 21st birthday and we just kind of been together ever since. Like we started dating, and so so we were dating before I started working at University of Phoenix, but then I think it was about 6 months after I was at University of Phoenix is when I helped him get into enrollment. So he was a referral for me to get him into enrollment. And then we worked at UOP for those years together, and then I went to GCU and then he ended up going to GCU. So we kind of just followed each other a little bit for a couple of places that we've worked at.
So, um, 14 years is a long time, and you've got two
Mhm.
really beautiful children. Uh,
Mhm.
three now, right?
Three.
Yeah,
Yeah, three. Yep,
yeah.
three.
Um, but marriage, just like any other relationship, takes, time and effort and work. Was it always you and him together, or was there like issues that you needed to work through? Like, how does someone go from 21, which is like fresh
Baby.
baby, yeah, to sustaining 14 years? Like, were there highs and lows? Did you guys,
Mhm.
so,
Yes. So Travis and I were together for 5 years before we got married. So we met in 2010, right? No, 2010 is when we got married. We met in 2005. So we were together for 5 years before we got married. And then so I met him, I would say, I think it was roughly about 6 or 7 months after his mom passed away.
mm,
So he was going through a lot at that time. And then just being that young and, just not, he was going through a lot. And me being naive and not really knowing a lot, I was thinking, oh, he's just, grieving. It's normal. So we definitely, I would say the first, and him and I agree on this together, the first 3 years, we probably shouldn't have necessarily been together, but we were because we were still so young and he was going through a lot. It wasn't just like the mom stuff, it was like other family stuff that he was going through. So, and then me not having experience to that and not knowing how to handle it, it was just is a very messy type of relationship, but we were both, obviously grew from that. A lot of counseling took place, and we've gone through counseling over the years. A lot. We've, I the thing, and I give him credit, because the thing that changed our marriage, because we were on the cusp of ending it, like it just was, something had to change. And that change was he to this day still does not know how he got to church, but he just said,
mm.
I went on a drive, I don't know how I ended up there, but I ended up at this building, and when I came out of it, I was out of church. And that changed him completely. And that is what saved our marriage, was counseling, going to church, getting what we both needed, help and maturity and guidance, all that stuff.
Did
um
did you grow up in a church environment? Were
I
you
did, yes. I
okay?
grew up Catholic. But then after, I would say after a little while, we were going to church periodically, up until maybe I was in later elementary. And then we kind of just stopped going. And I've always had that relationship. Travis went through that very dark period of his life, so he was far from what I had grown up with. He grew up Baptist, but
Mm.
he fell out of that, and just went down this very dark path for a while. Um, and then he came back to it, and he got baptized a few years ago. He chose to get baptized as a Christian. And so that was pretty amazing to see him go through that journey and that change, and get baptized. And then he has always been a big advocate of, he does his Bible study every day, and we talk about stuff like that with our kids and get clarity from our kids. We go to church and ask our kids what they learn. And, if there's any confusion, we are able to help them with that.
That's really as young people growing up in today's world, and I'm far beyond young, so I'm just kind of reflecting back. But we live in such a disposable world
Mm-hmm.
that any sign of hardship, people just want to walk away.
Yeah.
And if you're have a spiritual connection with God and your partner
Mm-hmm.
does not, that makes it
Mm-hmm.
even more difficult because
Absolutely.
you just kind of want to walk away. But there had to have been something inside him that you saw
Mm-hmm.
that kept you there.
Oh yeah. I've always told him, I said, even when you were at your worst, like just as a man, a partner, you know, um, I always knew that you could be so much more than what you were. I had to keep faith, and my faith was very strong because it took a little longer than I thought it would, but we got here, and I knew that we were eventually going to get here. So I had to keep my faith that it was going to happen, and it did. So I'm thankful for that. And but yeah, it was just it was very hard because I still carried that connection with God, and he was just so against everything about him. And that was really hard. It felt lonely. It just felt lonely because I knew that there was more to it, and that there was a change that was going to happen. It just wasn't going to be on my time. It's always on his time. And I saw that change, and I was happy that I stuck around and had my faith that it was going to change, and it did. And now
Well,
it's
it's
nothing like
even
what it
more of an
was.
attribute, but it's an attribute to him too, because when you're in your darkness, and I'm speaking from someone who's
Mm-hmm.
lived a dark world,
Mm-hmm.
when you're in your darkness and you have this person who loves you and sees the potential in you and all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that you talked about, internally you're going, you're full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you see. I don't care what
Yep.
you see. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
about this God you keep talking
Yep.
about. You're full of shit.
Mm-hmm.
So for
Yep.
him to even stay in that environment speaks volumes as well,
Mm-hmm.
because he could have walked and said, I don't need any of this. I'm good
Mm-hmm.
on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to him for hanging in it as well. And
Yes.
so what was it like for you? So you're in this tumultuous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
have your spirituality and your connection with God, and he has his darkness.
Yeah.
And then he has his moment.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like when he came home that day? What was it like for you to see that transformation? Because it had to be visible.
So actually, he kept it a secret from me. So he
Mhm.
had secretly started going to church, and I didn't know it.
Oh wow.
So he knew that I was stressed out, and he knew the toll that it had taken on me. And then that toll, along with just being a parent and, the chaos of just family life. So he had taken the kids, and I I thought he was just taking them out for like yogurt or, something just like daddy time. And I was like, okay, that's great. He came back, and Wyatt had a sticker on the back of his shirt. And I said, hey, Wyatt, come here. What is that? And it said Wyatt, and it had like the church's name. So he was in the childcare. And I was like, what is this? And Travis is like, oh, uh, and I said, did you take them to church? And he said, yeah, I've been going. And I was like, well, and I said, what? How come you didn't tell me? And he's just like, well, because I just wanted to see what it was like. And it's very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable for him. It was brand new territory. He didn't know how to process it himself. He was
Hmm.
just, it was very hard for him at first. And so he was just like, I just didn't think that you would want to be a part of it because of, just everything that I've put you through. And then there was a time where I was losing my faith because I was just like, when is this going to happen? When is this going to change? And so at that point, we started going together as a family, and it was great. We now, we go to different church now, but yeah, it was a great thing for me to see him come into his own spirituality and finding his own relationship with God, and just the positive that it changed on him. Like his mentality changed, like how he was talking, his tone was different. Like he was literally taking what he was learning and trying to apply it to himself. On top of that, he was also going to counseling. So he was getting two forms of help that he fought against for so many years, because that's scary. Like you're having to accept some failure that happened within yourself that you need to kind of change. And I am like, that was hard for me too, when I was having to like accept where I failed and where I'm weak at, and how do I make these changes to get strong. So,
How long into your marriage until this transformation? Because you said you had the children, so
mhm,
know that they're relatively young. So that had
yeah.
to be a long time of
Mhm.
being married in that chaos.
Yeah,
before
because
separation?
we didn't even have Riley. So Riley wasn't around yet, and she's 4. So I can't remember exactly, but I know Wyatt was probably about, let's see, he just turned 9. I think he was like 6-ish. So quite a while, quite
Wow.
a long time that we dealt with that. There is, I mean, again, like it hasn't been the easiest marriage by any means, but we have both definitely grown a lot. More so him. Like I would say he has just become this completely different person, nothing like what it used to be. So it was hard. It was not easy for a long time.
So how was it for your family during those dark times? Because brothers and sisters want to stick up for each other. They
Mhm.
see, the chaos that our sibling is living in, and they,
Mhm.
it's not easy being around people who are not treating our family members right or well. What kind of support did they give you, and what was their transformation
Mm.
as well during this time?
So I would have to say that I'm a pretty private person when it comes to family, which is funny, but um so my I'm close with my siblings, but I that's been more recent. Like the past 1 or 2 years is when I've started getting to be more close with them. So I didn't really see them that much. I didn't really talk to them that much.
Mm,
Um, and because my youngest sister, she's 12 years younger than me.
mm,
So, she was with her mom and my dad, all that stuff. But so they don't know a lot of any of this stuff that Travis and I went through. They just, like when we were around family, we were fine. We talked
mm.
and hung out with family. It was fine. But I never was close enough with them to like confide in them about certain things, and that's also with my other family members as well, like just extended family and stuff like that. I've always just kept that pretty private, and just dealing with things like that and finding other sources to help us get through those dark times, which was the counseling in church and church family and stuff.
So you really had to wear multiple masks. You had to wear
Hmm.
the mask around your family, you had to wear the mask around your coworkers, and then
Hmm.
you had the reality of home.
Yeah,
Was that um, easy for you or hard?
it was hard. It was hard, and I did have a couple of close friends that I did confide in, and they would give advice and stuff like that, because some of them are going through those things themselves. So
Mhm.
that I think helped me get through some of my hard times with what we were just going through in our house. And but again, I have to give a lot of credit to him, to Travis, because it would take him a little bit, but when he realized the impact he was making, he would always accept it. Like he would just say, I'm wrong here. Like, I'm sorry
Mhm.
that I made you feel this way. Or he's always owned up to his shortcomings. He's always have. And it wasn't like that for a long time. But he did do that. And again, just having the friendships that I had to help me kind of just bounce ideas off of, or, talking about things, is what helped me get through, and be able to voice to him like why I was upset, or just having more communication with him, and him being open to receiving it, and making changes.
So I'm curious, because a lot of our behaviors stem from what we've learned from where we came from or what we
Mhm.
knew. But if you
Yeah.
didn't have a closeness with your siblings and some of your other family, where did you learn this coping mechanism or this intestinal fortitude to stick through it all? Where did that come from within you?
Um, I don't know. I think I'm stubborn, and I mean, I know I'm stubborn. And I think that it's um I have a very hard time connecting to people in general. So when I find a deep connection, I will fight for that connection to stay. Um, it's kind of bad to say, but if I don't have a strong connection with you, I can easily disassociate myself from
Mm-hmm.
it because I'm doing what I need to do to protect myself. Like if I see that you're a toxic person or something like that, I disassociate myself very quickly. And it
Mm-hmm.
comes off very cold, but I know how to protect myself. And when it comes to my husband, this was the person I chose to accept marriage with. This is the person I chose to have children with. So it's not that easy to just disassociate yourself from this person that you are having a life with. And so I think that the stubbornness and then just how much I've put into the relationship and how much he's working to make the relationship work is what has kept me to just keep going. Like we've both grown in a lot of different ways to strengthen stuff. Um his home life that he grew up with and my home life from what we grew up with, we've recognized that, and obviously it will spill into your household because you've grown up with it. It's like embedded in you.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so hard to break certain patterns.
Mm-hmm.
But we recognize that, and him and I have broken a lot of patterns that we've had in what we grew up with that we're trying not to bring into our household. It still leaks over, don't get me wrong. There's times where we're just like, oops, crap. We That's bad.
Yeah.
And we have to try to fix it. But we both grew up in households where it wasn't fixed. It was
Uh,
just kind of swept under the rug. And so when him and I came together, him and I were doing that to each other. And we're just like,
mm-hmm.
wait, this is just adding and adding and adding and making things so much harder than it needs to be. Like we need to just face it and deal with it. And that's what him and I've worked so hard on in our household is we will always admit, even to our kids, like I was wrong. I shouldn't have, gotten upset with you like that, or to each other, we'll say sorry. And it was really hard because in my family, we don't say sorry very often.
Mm.
It's a very rare word that you hear. And Travis would always say, saying sorry doesn't actually kill you. And I was like, but it kind of does. It feels like it because I'm
Inside it does.
wrong. I'm admitting when I'm wrong here. So that has taken a lot of work, but we're trying really hard still to keep certain patterns and cycles out of this household that him and I grew up with.
So you talk about, the household that you grew up in, and that's kind of where some of these behaviors are learned, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where these walls are built, whether we want to
Mm-hmm.
see them or not. What was it in your upbringing that created this need for such a strong wall?
Um, I think it was because I didn't necessarily have that myself. Growing up, I had my mom, I knew she loved us and, she was, our provider. She took care of us and everything, but I could see being a single parent, how hard that was for her and how it wore her down and how she wanted to be this mom, but she wasn't able to be the mom that she necessarily probably wanted to be for us.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just kind of, I don't know, in a way, just found ways of protecting myself against that hurt that was happening, or the frustration, like learning not to hold on to the frustration and it changing me over time. I've kind of found a way to just say, you know what, that's not that frustration that they're taking out on me isn't because of me. So I'm going to learn to bounce that off,
Hmm.
and just say, you know what, like when you're ready, calm down. I know you're going to apologize, or hopefully you would apologize. I'm not going to expect it, but I know that what you're taking out on me is not what I've done to you.
Hmm.
So I've learned different coping mechanisms over the years from what I was dealing with in my household,
Well,
to
that
kind of
takes a
just
certain amount of
protect
skill.
myself.
So somebody, I mean, that is not innate to
Mhm.
our upbringing to have that kind of awareness, especially as children. So
Mhm.
somebody had to model that for you.
Mhm.
Who was like a mentor growing up in your life that kind of helped you develop those just because of how you saw them handling it?
Um, I think. where I kind of got some of that modeling from was one of my close friends' moms, who was a single mom, but she was amazing. Like, no matter, she didn't show her kids the frustrations or the hardships that she may have gone through. And she loved her kids unconditionally. Like, it doesn't matter if it was a bad day for her, her kids never saw it. And I never saw it. Not until like when we were older and we were hanging out and like we started having more real conversations and stuff. Like, so that modeling is what I just loved. Like, I loved going over to her house because she loved her daughter's friends as much as they were her own kids. Like, she would hug us and kiss us and make us food and just sit there and talk to us. And, you know, she wasn't like the cool mom. Like, you knew she was mom, like she was mom, but I guess I've always just tried to, I've taken that as the example of what I would like. So I'm like overly affectionate with my kids. And sometimes, Mom, stop kissing me so much. I'm like, but I love you so much. And just like, you know, my soon to be teenage daughter's going through this awkward phase of like, she doesn't think she's pretty. I'm like, you're so beautiful. Like, you're beautiful inside and out. And it's just a weird phase. It's okay to feel this way. Just things that I didn't necessarily have growing up, but I saw my friend's mom doing that with her all the time. And the difference between her upbringing and my upbringing is just like night and day. And so I think that's the only thing that I can think of that sticks out in my mind automatically when you asked me that was her mom, my friend's
Yeah.
mom.
I'm curious, and that's often, I've done this podcast now for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk to a lot of people. We all go through our stuff. But one common thread through everybody's story who has made it to the other side is that they found a mentor or a model outside of their chaos
Mm-hmm.
that they embraced. And oftentimes it is our friend's parent who helped
Mm-hmm.
raise us, right?
Yeah.
And does she know that? Have you ever told her?
Um, we fell out of touch over the years only because she's moved out of state. But I've always told her, like, you're my second mom. I love you so much. And, you
Nice.
know, I don't know. I can't remember if I've actually told her that, but I mean, I could.
Yeah.
I
But I
could,
mean,
and I probably will.
and the only reason I asked that, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I asked that is because I watch how loving and nurturing my wife is.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's natural to what she does, she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
realize the impact that it has on the people around her. And then when she
Yeah.
tells it, it's like, oh, I didn't know I was having that kind of impact.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's important for others to know that they are, even if they're not our children, that they're
Mm-hmm.
having an impact on the world around them. And I think it's kind of nice that they, get to hear, some of that stuff. So,
Yeah.
if you get a chance, I think you should,
Yeah. I
um,
have her information, so I can always reach out to
just
her.
drop her a line.
Yeah.
So how is this translating into your house? Because you said you're overly affectionate, you're caring and nurturing. Are you
Mhm.
seeing the impact that that change in your dynamic is having on your children?
Yes. And it's interesting because we see it more, not necessarily with our little one because she's 4, you know, she's toddler years, but our oldest daughter, Eloise, and Wyatt, our son. Wyatt is, he's the only boy, but he is the most naturally nurturing boy that you could ever. He is polite, he uses manners, he's a sweetheart. Like, he is naturally a good boy. And if I'm not feeling good or something, he always checks in with me, or he gets me a blanket, or, you know, he's just naturally nurturing. And I I think that comes from me and Travis, you know, not necessarily growing up with that, but
Hmm.
making sure that our kids knew that they were always loved and taken care of. And Eloise, you know, now that she's heading into her teenage years, um, she's a really good kid. Like, we feel we are doing right by her as far as getting her set up for real life. And we're not doing it 100% right. Nobody ever does. But I see what I see being a teacher, and I see what we're doing with our daughter. And I'm like, oh, we feel good. Like she's an honest kid. She's truthful with us. She's open with us. So she comes to us and asks us almost everything. So we have a very open relationship. And I definitely did not have that growing up. I did not feel comfortable going to my mom about things. I felt more comfortable going to my friend's mom about
Mhm.
asking about things or advice and stuff like that. Whereas my daughter, she'll be like, no, it's embarrassing. Like, it's okay. Like, I can guarantee you, mommy and daddy already know. Like, we've been through it, and so we are always sharing our experiences and how we can relate to her. And so then she'll open up to us about things, and she asks us things that, are doozies, but we go through it and we tell her, not to have these conversations with your friends because we don't know what they're exposed to in their household or what they're not exposed to in their household. But because you're mature, she is a more mature of her age than she typical student kids are. Um, so I see that and it's just like, okay, like we're on the right track, but that track can easily go somewhere else because teenage years are definitely around the corner. So
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing that we're gonna have to learn to maneuver.
Well, and it's always weird to me because I watch it over and over again with teenage girls. Like they
Mm-hmm.
go through this period where they love their mom, they have a close relationship with their mom, they want to be around their mom, and then some light switch
Mm-hmm.
flips, and they're
Yep.
like, "Don't ever talk to me. Get out of my space."
Yeah.
And then they go
Yeah.
through this years of just combat with their mom, and then another switch, and then they're back to being, the
Yep.
friend. So
Oh yeah.
I hope you're able to avoid that.
We've already experienced that. Like there's like, I love you, mom. Like, oh, I love you too. And then she'll be like, I hug her. She's like, oh, that's so cringe. And I'm like, oh, cringe. Or like her and I will just have these days where we're just butting heads. We're not getting along at all. And then I look at Travis and I'm like, it's your time. It's your turn. And she is him to a
Yeah,
T, just in a girl form. So he knows exactly how to just de-escalate her, talk to her calmly and low, like in a low
yeah,
voice, so that it's not like the mean low voice. Is just like, okay, what's going on, and
right.
I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't do this, like this is just like this is not how I'm able to do this.
Yeah. No, I see that a lot in family dynamics. And I want to give you some accolades here because I know that through your growth and through where you've come in your relationship with God and your family and your husband, it's made you a very nurturing person. You
Mm-hmm.
say you're walled and you're guarded, but I see the accolades that you get from your children in school,
Mm-hmm.
and that the if I think back to my school days, there's
Mm-hmm.
three specific teachers that even 40 plus years later I can still remember. And
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact when these kids get older, you're going to be one of those teachers that they remember because I see the impact online that they express to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to make sure I give you that kudos because you're going to be that person that nurtures some of these kids that never get that in their own home life.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very special for especially young teachers in today's school system. So, congratulations for bringing that not only from your house but into these other children's lives as well. So,
Thank you. I hope so. I hope that I am a teacher that one of my students will remember out of the many that I've taught so far.
well, I think that it's definitely going to be. I am curious too because you have this nurturing capability for kids and you're
Mm-hmm.
raising this family. What got you into woodworking? Because I've seen some of the things you've built.
Yeah.
And like, I'm lucky if I can build a toothpick. You're building these, chairs and tables and like, what got you into woodworking?
My papa, my grandpa is the MacGyver of our family.
Okay.
And he growing up, he had this huge 2-car RV. They've always had an RV, and then the other side was his workshop. That was his workshop area. he's always been handy. I mean, he made us night lights, all of it, all of me and my cousins. I still have mine. I have mine and my brother's that now is in my kids' rooms. He's always That's always what I've grown up with. He's always been handy. He has tractors and he would just, like, build things and I think what got me into it was because I really, really wanted a wood dining table. And I looked around and it was like $1,500, 2000, back when the economy was different.
Right.
And back then it was expensive. And I'm like, I'm not going to pay this much. So I went online and I looked up plans to build a table, and I looked it up on Home Depot, and it was like $150 for me to build my 7-foot dining table with the bench. It was $150. And I had my friend that was, single parent, and she was my very good friend, and she was remodeling her house on her own by doing it just herself and figuring out things herself. And so she came over and helped me and taught me some things. And it just kind of went from there. I was just like, oh my gosh, I built this thing. What else can I build? And so I started on this journey of Valentine's gifts and Christmas gifts being only tools that I wanted. So it was really easy for Travis. He's like, my wife wants tools, and, she doesn't want like a Coach purse or,
Right.
something like that. She wants tools and batteries and,
Yeah.
other things. And so I just kind of went from there. And then I just, oh, that space looks blank in my house. What can I put there? A library. Okay, I'm going to build a library thing. So I did, put
That's
all my kids'
awesome.
books in. So it just kind of went from there. And
Yeah.
so I
I
just,
have another friend who owns a construction company. She does remodeling in the houses, and she does cabinetry and bookshelf,
Mhm.
all that stuff. And I look at you both and I'm like, wow, that's it's it's really cool because, like I said, I can't build a toothpick, but it's it's amazing. And but now you have something to fall back on,
Yeah.
if you decide you don't want to be a teacher anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So over the summer, I'm already planning projects that I want to get done during the summer break. So we'll
That's
see what happens.
so what's in store for you in this coming year? I know that a lot of people make goals and plans. And by the time this is airing, it'll be middle of May or
Mhm.
May-ish. So what's the second half of 2024 look like for the Sloan House?
Oh, it's hard to say because I mean, I'm still planning on teaching. So I'll still be doing teaching. I am looking for other avenues I'm not necessarily gonna get out of teaching yet, but I don't know. I love it and I'm good at it, but I don't know if this is like a 20-year career type thing for me.
Hmm.
It's perfect for now. I love being a teacher with my kids or being in grade school. It's great. So I'm looking at maybe possible other avenues of secondary income, or just something that I can work on now that would allow me to transition out of teaching when I'm ready to transition out of teaching. Um, Travis is still working. He's still looking for something that is his passion. So we're currently in talks of a few things for him that might be a passion for him that I think he'd be really good and that could lead to opportunities for him. And the kids are just kids, they just, take it day by day. They want to do sports and stuff, but we got our pool built last year, so we're kind of done on major house projects. I'm just going to be doing some smaller house projects around the house throughout the year just to kind of see what it goes. And hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll be able to move out of Maricopa where we're at right now, and hopefully get closer to East Valley where I grew up. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what comes down the pipeline available for that. So.
Well, I know that whatever it is, you're going to do it well. If somebody is listening to this and they are also struggling in their relationship or their marriage or even their relationship with God,
Mhm.
what advice would you give them since you've been down that road?
Um, Accept being uncomfortable it's a very, very uncomfortable process because It is something that you are stepping out of the normal with. When you get stuck in something, it becomes normal to you. So it is the hardest thing to do different things to get unstuck, and it's very uncomfortable. So for me, I started reading the Bible, which is not something that um, I was doing. It's something Travis does all the time. He reads the Bible, he knows it way better than I do. And that was uncomfortable for me because it's hard for me to read it.
Hmm.
Because as you're reading it, a lot of a lot of what you're reading, it applies to you. You're just like, oh, I don't feel so good right now, or okay, I need to do better in this. Um, but just like I started reading other books, like just regular books, which is not something that I was doing. I'm trying to do things that are trying to force me out of my normal that I don't want to be in. I don't want to be in an unhealthy, toxic normal. I'm
Hmm.
trying to get out of it. So I'm trying to just do little things here and there that I normally probably wouldn't do
Hmm.
to help boost my self esteem, to help boost my confidence, to just get my mind somewhere else where it opens up a little bit more, to where I can just keep exceeding at what my main goal is. And that's just to be happier.
Well, I definitely know from the people that I've coached and whatever, your only growth is going to come outside your comfort zone. And
Mm-hmm.
and that first step outside of it is the scariest. But
Mm-hmm.
we don't need courage if we're not afraid of something.
Yeah.
And so that's where you also build your strength and your courage and your ability to step out. But that's where the magic happens is the growth is outside your comfort zone. So
Yeah.
kudos to you for seeing that and knowing that.
Thank
I
you.
think great things are going to happen for you. I'm going to ask you one last question. I ask it to all
Yeah.
my guests,
Mhm.
since you're in my circle and in my tribe. What does a warrior spirit or having a warrior spirit mean to you?
For me, it means to just never give up. Just you you find strength within yourself to push through, even if it's the hardest thing that you're having to go through. Like just finding your own inner strength to just push through what you need to do. That I think is what that means to me. Because I have to do that to myself all the time. When I feel like I just can't do something or push through something anymore, I don't know how it happens, but this like little fire starts igniting. You're just like, no, you can do this and you're going to do this. You don't have a choice to not do this. So you find your own strength and then you just keep going.
I think that's a beautiful definition of it. And I definitely know that you embody that. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your journey and your story. And many blessings to you and Travis. And I hope you guys just do wonderful things together.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Bye now.
Bye.